it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. So today we're shaking things up and doing things a little different. Every so often, a team member of mine, Tara Darazio, who's also the founder of Passion for the Pen, Tara and I have worked together, I think, for close to 10 years now. And we kind of finish each other's thoughts very often. So we thought it would be fun and bouncing in to highlight the 4th of July coming up in Independence Day, to do what, for you guys to listen to some of our talks and what we do together. So Tara, thanks for joining me here today.
Thanks, Ivy. Yeah, I can't believe it is this far into summer already. In fact, we're celebrating, we just had the first day of summer, depending on when you're listening to this, but it is in full swing and the 4th of July is coming up. And we were just chatting about kind of freedom and business and what all that means. And we thought, let's do an episode on kind of some of the ways that we need to be prepared in our business so that we can have the freedom in our life. So Ivy, tell me a little bit about, what freedom means to you when it comes to your business and working with your clients.
Freedom to me personally, and like the idea of independence, is the concept of living life on my terms from a place of joy and fulfillment. And that has always been what has driven me. This is not like a Slater Success mission. This has been Ivy Slater in business for 30 some odd years of building an organization that fulfills me and brings joy to my entire world. So I am determined, I'm committed to, in a better way of putting it, to live from a place of joy and happiness. And then everything I do shall drive that, including my business.
Right. And for me personally, I completely agree. When I left the corporate world, I actually thought I would end up going back. But then I realized because I could do this type of work from home and create my own business, that was the best path for me. And that was surprising to me. I didn't think I would go that route. I always saw myself going back. So I think, yes, you do find what works for you, what does bring you that joy. And then you have to keep on that path because that's what's most important in life, to have that freedom and have that joy. So we were chatting in our team meeting about some of the areas of business that people do get stuck and where these can cause you to not have the joy and the freedom in your life because you're so focused on these kind of to-dos in your business. So why don't we start with team, because I know that's a big one for you. So let's talk about some of the issues that you might see or challenges that people have with team.
I have always been along the belief of, I don't want to do this myself, right? It was like, I don't want to be here alone. I don't want to do this myself. I know myself well. And I know I'm a person who brainstorms very well, that when I'm working with other people, from my former partner to my old team of Joyce, Doris, Michael, and Rita, we would all sit around that conference table and, talk through things. And the greatest ideas came from that. So, when I started this company, it's like, well, who are my people? How do I build new team? And when I work with my clients today, I'm always about, if we concentrate and do what we're really good at and do what's in our sweet spot and pass down the line everything else. Now, that doesn't give us the excuse to say, oh, I can't do that. Okay. But if we pass down the line and we are then doing several things, we're living from a place of joy because we're doing what we enjoy. We are helping other people provide for themselves and their families. That's incredibly joyful. When Tara, like in our meetings, it's like we start on Monday mornings and everybody celebrates something. And it's like, it could be like Star and I could be talking about like what we did for our gardens or, and you just finished a kitchen project. It's exciting to be able to provide and do for ourselves. And by us working as a team, we all win. so there's that piece of when you pass down work, or you have other people on your team that work in their sweet spots. And then again, I want to say it doesn't excuse us from not being able. So anybody who's been following me for a while, or if you're new to this, welcome to her success story. I will say I am no tech genius, right? I rely on a lot of people surrounding me to help me with technology. I get intimidated by technology, but that doesn't mean I can't do it. I might look for more help with it, right? So when we build team, we have the ability to do more what is in our place of joy, help other people build great lives for themselves, do great service for our clients, and scale our businesses, which is like the greatest win of all.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say, for where I think where people can get stuck is thinking, oh, I have to do all of this myself. So they don't surround themselves with the people that will bring those other strengths that they don't have. And also that communication piece, because sometimes we can get so bogged down in the work that we forget to take those moments. And our team is great at not doing that we do take the moments to talk about family and friends and what we did and the concert we just went to or whatever it might be. So I think what you're saying is find the people that support you, communicate, make sure that your company culture is not just work, work, work. There has to be that connection so that people want to work together. And especially in this hybrid world that we live in, it can be more difficult because you don't have the conference room, table, you're kind of over a screen. And delegating where you need, to delegate and having trust in your team. So if people are feeling stuck right now, and another thing I think you talk about a lot, if people say, well, I'm not sure I'm ready for a team or I don't have the finances yet, hiring people, how do you know when it's time to hire a team or have someone helping you?
No, that's a really good question. And it's an area we all get stuck in. And I will say, when I was building this company in the early days, I got stuck in that area. I kept saying I'm not ready. And here's a little side note, funny story is I knew I needed to hire back in the day. And this is probably where we're in 14 years in business. So this was 12, 13, 14 years ago, right? Knew I needed to hire, but I didn't. And everybody started talking about VAs, virtual assistants. And I could not wrap my head around how do I hire a virtual assistant? If I'm in New York and this person I got introduced to was in Atlanta, Georgia, I was like, I can't delegate that way. It doesn't work. But I was like, okay, I'm going to do what I committed to doing because I'm very, very, if I commit to doing something, I'm going to follow through. So I hired this wonderful woman, Kathleen. And I signed the contract and did the whole thing. We did the welcome. And it was like 30 days later, 60 days later. And she I get an email. She goes, we need to do a phone call. I was like, okay, great. I'm in. So we do, this is way pre-Zoom. And we do a phone call. And she goes, Ivy, you need to give me work. And I said, I honest to God, don't know how. Mm-hmm. And she trained me. She trained me how to delegate virtually, from a woman who always worked in an office, ran a company, had my people my pressmen were to my left hand, my production assistant was to my right hand, my production person, my finance, everybody was like a hand away. And sometimes when we hire, they train us when we don't know what to do. And Tara, you've been such an important piece of our relationship is you have trained me in so many ways. And I know I didn't mean to avoid the question of how do we find the finances? So, because I don't avoid financial conversations. When you're building a business, when you're scaling a business, I don't care if it's new, I don't care if you're taking it to the next level. It very often we have to create an investment around that. And when we look to create investments around whether it's growing or scaling, right? Whether it's the new growth, like, new seeds went in the garden here. Anybody's following me knows I'm a gardener here. Planted some new seeds last week, right? Right. We need capital. Where is the capital coming from? Is it coming from your savings account? Is it coming from a credit card? Have you chosen a lump sum of money that you're going to invest into the business to build it? And keep track and make sure it's put in your business as a loan and talk to your accountant about that, and it's paid back. In that same way, start looking at, as you delegate, what can you do in sales, right? So if you're delegating 5 hours of work and you're paying X amount of dollars for that amount of work each week, can you create 2 to 3 hours of sales? Can you create some marketing time? What can you be doing with that time that actually helps you scale and grow?
Right. It's taking all of those to-dos kind of off your plate, letting someone who has potentially more strength in that subject anyway, handling it, so that you can work on your business and be more part of the business development side of it, or going to another networking event, or following up, spending more time there. And I think along with team, and I know that people on our team have definitely introduced you to new things, and me, systems and processes, because it's very easy to kind of do what has always worked, or, oh, I just write this down, or, oh, I have this calendar here. But how important are system and processes to business growth? And maybe what are some of the real specific systems that better be in place?
If you don't put in systems and processes to your business, you're not actually running a business, you're running a hobby, even if you're collecting money, okay? Because it's not scalable. You know, you're making enough money to pay some bills, which is great, but you can't scale it. You can't grow it because nothing is going to be organized from that point forward. And I always believed in systems and processes, and yet, and I will out myself, and I'm always, Tara knows me well, I'm always going to tell it like it is. When I was, as Slater Success has grown over the years, I was, you could ask Sanaya, who has introduced Tara and I, you could ask Liz, who, we all worked with, shout outs to team members who were part of this company for a long time, who sometimes they were pushing systems and processes on me, and I was so stuck in it. I was stuck in my own way. And it's almost comical now as I take clients through project management systems. You can giggle. I see you laughing. And I was so resistant to so much for so long. As we put systems in place. So here's a couple of IDs systems: Money Mondays and Financial Fridays. Monday is my concentration, is what money is coming into this company, because there are bills to pay and people to pay, right? Tara's kids are off for the summer. They probably want extra ice cream, right? Whatever that is looking like, right? So Monday is my focus, is what money is coming into my company. And on Financial Fridays is what money should be going out. So on Mondays, I'm looking at my accounts receivables, what invoice should be going out. So who needs to be invoiced? How are the invoices going out? Where is there anything on receivables? On Financial Fridays, it's bill paying time. I want to go into my weekend with a clear head. I know when I close my week out and I've paid things that are due, I go into my weekend with a clear head. Going back to what we said earlier, running a business from a place of joy, that's incredibly helpful. And so, it's everything from having a to-do list and actually putting that list in your calendar. So it doesn't sit on paper. It doesn't sit in a notebook that you can't find. It doesn't sit somewhere. If you're working in a project management system, use your project management system, have it open, see, okay, if I have these activities, when am I scheduling actually doing the work? For instance, Tara, you told me I have to do a newsletter. I need to do a video newsletter, right? It's coming out tomorrow, right? So which means Ivy has to put in her calendar when she's going to shoot the video, because we need to put the lights on. We need to put some lipstick on. We need to know our content. It has to be scheduled. Everything gets scheduled.
Right. And what I'm hearing you say too is systems aren't just, I think people think systems and they think, oh, that's my email provider, or how often I post on social media, or my, email, my inbox or whatever. But it's also personal systems that you create, just as you have with Money Mondays, Financial Fridays. So not only is it that tech side where it's, yes, what does your email automation campaigns look like? Or how does your follow-up work? It's also what you can create that works for your specific business that maybe no one else has to even understand. It's just something that, with either as the CEO or with your team, that is a system or process that you need to do. For instance, our team, we hold team retreats twice a year. And we go over kind of that next 6 months of what are we doing? What's working? What do we want to put in place? What actions do we need to take to make that happen? And that works well for us. Maybe some teams would need that once a year or 4 times a year. It just depends on the goals and what you need to do, how many people, all of those things. And, speaking of CEOs and leaders, your own personal leadership for everyone leading a company or leading people on a team is the resistance to things that they have to do, whether it be decisions or having that imposter syndrome or having to lead a team when they maybe haven't led people before. We also talked about that being a place where people can get stuck. So if you're what is your advice to leaders or emerging leaders as far as how to be a decision maker with confidence and how to get over kind of those feelings that maybe you can't do this?
We all question ourselves. It's fine. It's normal. It's human. What the difference is when we allow it to stop us versus when we don't allow it to stop us. I have questioned my own confidence. I've questioned, am I ready? Am I the right person? I've had all those thoughts that many of us have. The question is, do we allow it to stop us? And I'll always say, make the decision. It's okay. I've made plenty of bad decisions. We could do a 30-hour podcast of all my bad decisions, and that just might be a year. Mm-hmm. Right? And then we can go into year 2 or year 3. But we all make good and bad decisions. So if we focus on only making good decisions, we are wasting our time and energy on actually taking action on what we can accomplish. We can shift decisions. We can make better decisions. We will course correct our decisions is probably the best way to do it. We've done things, Tara, with our brand. Like, I'm like, it doesn't look so good, but we put it out there and then we fix it. Mm-hmm. And I am 100% authentic and transparent. It's like, oh, I thought we can do this better. It's not saying we failed. I thought we can improve it. I thought we can do it better. Never say an indecision, especially if you're looking to actually grow an organization or as you're scaling an organization. Decisions are important. Execution is important. It's decision, action, see what's working, make the next decision. There's a rhythm to it, shockingly enough.
Yeah. And you've talked many goals many times, and you've done presentations on this as well to various organizations, in that if there's a much larger goal, there's often small action steps you can take to get to step 1 or step 2 of that. And I think people can get bogged down but that's not the ultimate main thing, but sometimes it takes longer to get there. We talk about this podcast. It took us a couple years to really get it to where we were ready to launch, even though we knew we wanted to do it. But we consistently took action toward it. So I think as leaders, people think maybe, well, I have to get to this big, huge goal, when really the mini goals, as you would say, celebrate all of those milestones because it's still on the path to getting to where you want to be.
100%. And, and just like the story around this, we were introduced to do a podcast, and I took it, it was 3 of us. We went to this podcast class one evening. We went to dinner. We went to this podcast class, and we walked out of the class, and my 2 team members were all excited, like, oh, this is going to be great. And I was like, nope, we're not doing this. And they're like, what? And I was like, no, and I had reasons why it was going to be a distraction versus an enhancement. Now, that was not what I'll refer to as a not yet, not ready, not now, because then we came back and revisited it about 1.5 years later, and the timing was right. So sometimes, again, I made the decision. It was not that Slater Success and ID Slater was never going to do a podcast. It was at the time, that was not the time. And then when we did make that decision, we went full steam ahead. And going back to that delegating, if you remember, we had 3 people on the podcast, myself included. And I had one responsibility, you had another responsibility, and Liz had another responsibility at the time. And we each did it, and we kept reconvening. And then we're like, and I did mine, you did yours, Liz did her. And then all of a sudden, it was about 12 weeks later, we launched a podcast.
Right. So I think the lesson there too is sometimes when you get stuck, it could be just not this isn't going to happen, but maybe stop and see, okay, where do we go from here? Maybe it's not going to happen exactly at that moment. So getting stuck can be a good thing in a way, because it just gives you pause. And then you decide, okay, when will this happen? Is this even a good idea? Can we do this now? What it is. So getting stuck isn't always a bad thing, as long as you continue to take action, whether it's going to be towards it or whether you decide, hey, this actually isn't going to work. Because I know that's something you always say, what's working, what's not, and actually do something about that.
Right. And, pay attention. We know when we're in action, not everything is supposed to work. We're supposed to be in action and then observe. And that gives us insight. If something's not working, look at why. When something's working, see how you can expand it.
Right. So I think advice to the audience would be, if you're feeling stuck in any of these areas, think about some of the things we talked about today. Talk to your team, talk to mentors, colleagues, coaches, whoever it is that is in your support system. And if you want to find the freedom for your life and your business, look at what's working, what's not working, and take some steps towards some mini goals, and let us know, what are you working on? Leave us a comment on social media, review the podcast, send us an email. Just let us know. We love to hear what everybody's doing and what takeaways they have from the show.
Yeah. And I'll always say, as we close the show today, is take a moment and say, what was the most impactful piece of information you got today? Think about it. What's that aha, that takeaway? And then what is the action you're going to do with it? Feel free to put it in the show notes. If this episode resonated with you, share it forward to somebody else, so we continue to share the wealth, the knowledge out there. Be generous of heart. Thanks for joining us today on First Success Story.